Hello everyone. Let us start our next topic, that is gathering the requirements. In the previous video, we have discussed till the functional requirements and the non-functional requirement. Uh, what is functional requirement is it is nothing but the information exchange between the user and the system, and or information exchange between the system and the system. And the non-functional requirement, the constraints imposed on a system like time restriction or usability, accuracy. So these are all parameters which comes under the non-functional requirements. So next we'll move on to the case study introduction. Let us proceed under the assumption that developers of our library system have available to them a document that describes how the business is conducted. Here in our entire module, a library management system is taken under consideration, and which you are well aware of how the library system works. And when you are in a seventh semester, probably you'll be having an enough knowledge about what all the operations or what all the activities the library will take care of. And some of the uh, library system or some of the processes which will go in a library systems are listed below. Uh, First one, register new books, add new books to the collection, issue a book to a member, record the return of books, remove books from the collection, print out a user's transaction, place or remove a hold on a book, renew books issued to a member, so notify member of books availability. So these are all the ongoing process normally go in a library system. And for each and every process, suppose if you consider a first process itself or a first step itself or the first transaction also, I can say, that is registered new members. So generally speaking, in this registering a new member means a person who wants to avail the service of a library. So first he need to go and register himself by filling up certain application form. So this comes in your mind whenever the word called as registration comes in any form or in any context. So functional requirement specification, here use case diagrams we come across. What is this use case diagram? Here actions use case diagram consists of an actions and a responses. What are actions and what are responses? The left hand side will be the action from an actor, and the right hand side will be the response from the system. Actions will be from the actor, that is an input to the system which is provided to the system, and responses will be from the system, which after providing certain input, what that system will how that system will process that, and then how it sends the result uh, to the actor, back to the actor. The customer fills out an application form containing the customer's name, address, and phone number, and gives this to the clerk. So this is what you are doing as soon as you enter into the library for the first time. It's not often you need to do. For the first time, when you go to the library, one needs to fill out this form and give it to the clerk. The clerk issues a request to add a new member. You'll be the member who will be added in their database, I can say. The system asks for data about the new member. The system will ask about the data. Whatever the data you have filled in the form, that will be fed as an input to the system. The clerk enters all the data into the system, reads. So here you can see whatever the data you have filled in that form, all these will be fed as an input to the system, reads in data, and if the member can be added, generates an identification number. So this is something important. What is the uh, identification number is some unique number will be created by the system, because to distinguish between the between the several students or several members, I can say, one unique ID will be given, and your phone number, whatever the form you have filled out, so that will be entered into the system, and the clerk gives the user his identification number. With that identification number, the every time you will be identified. So this is use case register new member. Next use case adding the new books. So once the new books have been arrived to the library, it has to be added into the database. Library receives a shipment of books from the publisher. Whoever will be is the publisher. That publisher will get the books from there. The books uh, will be arriving to the library, and the clerk has to add those new books into the library, that is into the database. It will be added. The system asks for the identification identifier, title, and the name of author name of the book. So with uh, these three data, the system identifies the book. Okay, and the system generates a unique identifier. So enters the identifier, title, and author name of the book. So the clerk will enter these three fields, and the system attempts to enter the information in the catalog and echoes to the clerk the title. So whenever you are entering these information, it will echo, means it will display the information whatever you have entered. It displays to you, and then the clerk answers in the affirmative or in the negative. Is the information whatever you have entered is correct or not? It is that's what is called as an in a affirmative or in a negative. If it is yes, then the books will be added. If it is no, whatever you have entered into the library, if it is no, then once again there is something wrong in the entry. Then he need to go back to the process number 3, and then again he has to uh, ask the title, author, name of the book, and the things has to be repeated. If the answer is in a affirmative, the step system goes to step 3. It means affirmative means uh, the entry is not correct. He needs to carry out the uh, new entry. Next use case, book checkout. Book checkout is nothing but in a simple words, whoever has come to the library system, he should go and collect that particular book. When he collects the new book, collects the book, that is called as a book checkout. The member arrives at the checkout counter with a set of books and supplies the clerk with his or her identification number. The clerk issues a book to check out the books. So the person who wants to take the books, so he will bring and keep it in front of a clerk, and the clerk uh, has to make a checkout of those books. The system asks for the user ID. First, user ID, which is the unique ID of a person or a student, yeah, that will be given as an input. The clerk inputs user ID of the system, uh, user ID of the system. Next, the system asks for the ID of the book. First, user ID is important. Next, the book ID is important. Second, the clerk inputs the ID of the book that the user wants to check out. Yes, the user ID will be given as an input. Next, the system records the book as having been issued to the member. It also records the member as having possession of the book. It generates a due date. So, what is this due date? Every book, whatever is being checked out, it has to be submitted by a certain date. So that date the system itself will be generating, and that will be given as a receipt to the student or the user. The system displays the book title and due date, and asks it if there are any more books. So if at all a student takes 5 books, so the due date will be mentioned, and the clerk stamps the due date on the book and replies in the affirmative or in a negative. Okay. Next, if there are more books, the system moves to step 5. Otherwise, it exists. The customer collects the books and leaves the counter. So this is the use case book checkout. Next, uh, use case book checkout revise. Actions performed by the actor, response from the system. What is the difference between that and this? We'll see here. The member arrives at the checkout counter with a set of books and supplies the clerk with his or her identification number. Next, the same thing was there in the previous use case also. And the clerk issues a request to check out books. Yes, the clerk will issue. The system asks for the user ID. It asks for the user ID even. And next, for the user ID, uh, when it is asked for the user ID, if the user ID is valid, the system asks for the ID of the book. Otherwise, it prints an application appropriate message and exits the use case. It means here what is why this revised is written, because here it is checking whether that user ID is valid or not. This is the most important thing which is to be considered. If the user ID itself is invalid, then you need not to take a book. You cannot able to take any book. So that is the difference between the first one and the second one. Okay. And next use case, return a book. Returning a book. Here the member arrives at the return counter with a set of books and leaves them on the clerk desk. First, a book uh, taken by the will be brought by the student, and who wants to return the book. The clerk issues a request to return the book. Yes, the clerk will issue that. The system asks the identifier of the book. Whatever the identification number is given to the book, so that will be given as a input to the system. The clerk enters the book identifier. If the identifier is valid, the system marks that the book has been returned and informs the clerk if there is a hold placed on the book. Otherwise, it notifies the clerk that the identifier is not valid. Uh, Whether still the hold exists or not, that will be uh, taken care in this step. First, it checks whether that identifier is a valid one or not, and it even checks that whether there is a hold placed on that book. Hold means some more time available or not, so that is called as a hold placed on the book. If then asks if the clerk wants to process the return of another book. So first book gets over. Yes, if it is completed, it asks for the second also. The clerk answers in the affirmative or in a negative, and a set of books aside in the case there is a hold on the book. Yes, if there are a hold on the book, or if he wants to return again, then he may go for the next one for returning. And if the answer is an affirmative, the system goes to the step 3. Otherwise, it exists. Step 3 is all about the clerk issues a request to return books. So if there are more number of books, it goes to the step number 3, and otherwise it exists. Next, we'll see the use case removing books from the library, and there are certain rules to be followed over here. What is this rule table? And here also, the entire module is all about the library information system. What all the activities the library take care. So the same thing you are learning here, and we'll see the remaining part in the next video. Thank you.